Today on Locked On Red Wings, training camp has wrapped up. What are some of the players saying?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ news radio podcast. Well, Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And on today's episode, guys, training camp has wrapped up on this Monday evening as we were recording this. And so we're going to bring you some of the comments that players have said during media availabilities across the training camp. We want to talk about DeBrincat. Obviously, he said some things that made the rounds on particularly Sen's Twitter. Edmondson said some things I thought were interesting. Sider and Larkin mentioned some things. And then we'll try and wrap up with a quick Penguins preview as the preseason opener is on Tuesday today by the time you guys are listening to this.
We're doing game previews, Brian. I'm thinking we're back.
No, but like, it won't be a very intensive preview.
No,
because
obviously it'll be more just like what we're looking for type of stuff.
We don't know what the other team is going to even look like with how many players play in the preseason. So
I mean, Ken Cal said he didn't even think Crosby was going to play, or most of the veterans were going to play game one. So
exactly. But to lead things off, we got to let you guys know the Red Wings made, I think, 3 more players got cut from
it was 3. Yep.
3. The Detroit Red Wings today assigned forward Emmett Finney to the Western Hockey League's Kamloops Blazers. Kamloops is a great city. I love that name. And released forwards Dean Lucas and Nick Sema from their amateur tryouts. So again, like on yesterday's episode, none of these players were really ever candidates to make the team in the first place. So they're really only noteworthy as so far as to say they got cut altogether. Like, it's not like they're huge. Like, you got to name their names when they get cut.
Yeah. I mean, it's news because they're starting to trim the roster down. So obviously it's news, but obviously the names we're seeing aren't shocking. But yeah, I mean, cool for them to get an opportunity, and the young guys, they'll keep knocking on the door until hopefully they break through. So
yeah, that's absolutely it.
Resume builder, baby. That's what we call it.
Also, gotta let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Don't want to forget that. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, Scotty, now into the real business. Alex DeBrincat said some interesting comments over the weekend during his media availability that made the rounds on Sen's Twitter, and they are none too happy. Sen's X, I guess I should be saying at this point. Twitter, it's just Brian. Like in my brain, it's just wired that way. But basically, he admitted he was lazy last year. Said that he didn't have the best two-way game and was probably a little bit lazy. He should have been harder in the corners, back-checking a little bit more, playing harder in the defensive zone, was hitting a lot of posts, things like that. And the Senators' Twitter kind of blew up and was talking about how just basically it's such a bad look for him, calling him a loser and stuff like that. And, as a Red Wings fan, what I took up from that is a player owning up to his mistakes and committing himself to being a better player. I can understand why Sen's Twitter would be a little bit upset about that, because it's like, well, why weren't you that player with us? But I don't think it's like as big of a red flag as people are making it out to be. Some people are saying, and again, it's Sen's Twitter, not Red Wings Twitter. We don't care. But when you read those comments, some people might get concerned like, oh, he's admitting he was a lazy player. Like, lazy players don't just fix themselves. But the fact that he has the self-awareness to own up to those mistakes is reassuring. I'm not going to bet anything on the fact that he's able to own up to those, but the fact that he's able to admit to himself that this was an issue for him is reassuring that this won't happen again. That's as far as I'm willing to take those comments. For some people to be like, that's a major red flag, I think that's completely blown out of proportion.
Yeah, I don't take like a ton of substance with the quote really in general. Personally, I'm very sure, very, very sure that if the shoe was on the other foot and I was a Sens fan, or if a Wings player did a similar thing, that that some people in our fan base and probably myself would feel somewhat similarly to just hearing that quote out of the blue. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think that him saying that he felt like he could have played like better and sharper and harder means that he just like threw the season in and like didn't care at all either. Like I don't think it's like a huge red flag. And also just like the optimist in me is like put up 29 goals when he didn't care. Like, I mean, if you put him in an environment where, he's thriving a little bit more and maybe isn't, kind of nips the lazy thing in the bud and like isn't playing like that. I mean, who knows what kind of ceiling we could reach here. So that's what like the optimist in me kind of says. But yeah, man, like I don't look at that and go, oh, like this is a huge issue. Like this is going to be a huge problem for the team. Like, I mean, the Sens didn't have as big of a step forward as a team as they wanted to last year, and DeBrincat didn't play as well as anybody. DeBrincat or the organization wanted him to play. The fans, everyone wanted him to play last year. So like I view it as like him just talking about a down year that he like very obviously had, and what he plans on doing to try and fix it.
Yeah, I mean, and whenever you get into these media availabilities and players talk about, the year prior, in a lot of instances they're gonna say things like this, like, oh, I want to build on last year.
Yeah.
That's basically what he was saying. I want to build on last year. And like even if he was being a lazy player, as he so clearly admitted, so yeah, he was then in that case, because he's admitting it to himself, like he's committing himself to not being that player again. And the reason why I have faith that won't happen again this season is, one, he's playing for a team he wants to play for now. First and foremost, not that he didn't want to play for Ottawa, but he wanted to play for the Detroit Red Wings. Like, he very clearly made an effort to come back home, and he's going to be playing with, I believe, the majority of the time he was playing wing with, I think, Pinto over there in Ottawa, because they were so banged up down the middle, but he wasn't playing top line minutes because they had, I believe, Tkachuk on that wing on the top line with Tim Stützle. So he was playing with Pinto most of the time. I believe that's how it played out. So,
well, yeah, he had a lot of power play.
Yeah,
like that's where most of his goal scoring came, was power play. Yeah.
He's gonna be playing with Larkin this year, so more than likely, that's gonna be a huge upgrade. So I look at those comments, I hear those comments, and it just does not concern me at all. It does not concern me at all.
Same. I don't. It doesn't really bother me. Like, obviously my tone will change if like year one he is like if halfway through the season he's like, yeah, like I'm just like a lazy player and don't care, then like obviously that's different. But like with this quote in a vacuum and like what I expect out of him, like nothing changes because of a quote in September, man. Like I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. And plus, Derek Lalonde is coaching a very defensive first system. So if you're not playing defense on Derek Lalonde's hockey team, then
right. And I'm sure that this was talked about between Lalonde and Yzerman before the trade took place as well. Like, I'm sure this isn't like the first time they're talking about, like how DeBrincat's going to fit into their defensive system. Like this. Yeah, I'm not sweating too much over it, but I don't fault, like, this is not like an ivory tower thing. I don't fault, the Sens fans for maybe feeling some type of way about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably feel a little salty too, but just some of the things I've read are just like, okay, you guys are going a little bit too hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're saying that he like is a horrible human being and like gonna, like suck here, then like obviously that's a little short-sighted. But yeah, I think it would rub me the wrong way too.
And I just basically brought this up because I wanted to put it to bed. I don't want Red Wings fans to be concerned about it. Don't be concerned about Alex DeBrincat until and if he starts playing poorly with the Detroit Red Wings.
Agreed. So, yeah, I'm gonna let play do the talking and his play decide whether I'm happy or displeased. Like that's very possible too with how like him being on this team. I'm not gonna let a September quote
yeah, right,
affect how I feel about what he's gonna do for us.
Absolutely. All right, Scotty, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about a couple other comments that were made by Dylan Larkin, Simon Edmondson, and Mort Sider as well. We'll try to keep it brief But the DeBrincat stuff I wanted to just put to bed. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Simon Edvinsson spoke to the media. I think it was Sunday after the red and white game, I believe it was. It might have been Monday. There's so many of these media availabilities. It's hard for me to keep them straight in my mind. But the one main thing he brought up that I wanted to talk about is how hard he said that Larkin and Seider have been riding him to play harder, play better, and also about his own adjustment to North American hockey. And the first thing I absolutely love to hear, Larkin, it's expected. He wants this team to be better, so he's going to ride the young guys that have a lot on their shoulders, like guys that, and apparently they were riding Jonathan Berggren pretty hard too. Like these two young guys are fully expected to be guys who are going to carry the torch for the Red Wings, like be part of their core. So you're going to ride them hard, be like, this is the NHL now. It's going to be harder. But to hear that Moritz Seider in year 3 is also doing that. We've heard rumblings of Seider's like innate leadership qualities, but in year 3, for him to be stepping up and trying to shepherd a guy like Simon Edvinsson, who was taken 2 years after he was, I mean, that's incredible innate leadership that I love to hear. I love that Edvinsson is open to it, because one of the things he brought up as well is that, and he said, he used the phrase bad attitude. He said when he came over to North America, he had a bad attitude. And I'm not taking that, even though that is verbatim what he said. He used the term bad attitude. There might have been a little bit of a translation error, because if you listen through context of what he was saying, it sounded almost as if he was implying wrong attitude, not bad attitude, because Edvinsson's never really struck me as somebody who's had a bad attitude. But that's me. That's my own personal interpretation of the quote. Basically, what he was saying is Sweden, he had so much more time, and he always knew what he was going to do with the puck before he got it, that when he came over to North America, it was a huge adjustment period, and that he needs guys like Larkin and Seider. He appreciates guys like Larkin and Seider to ride him to continue to be better, to make it at the NHL level, because there was an adjustment period. And just all that together, I loved hearing that from Edvinsson, and I love hearing that about Seider and Larkin.
For sure. Yeah. I think the natural conversation with Seider is, and we've been having this conversation here for like a year now, but when is he going to start wearing an A on his jersey? I think that's like a pretty natural conversation to have, like, honestly, relatively soon. We'll see, like, immediately, like, immediate future this season. We'll see how it plays out. But like last year, the A's weren't really set in stone until like further in the year, right? We had like 6 different people wear an A the first like week or 2 of the season or whatever. Like, I think Larkin's obviously the captain going forward. He's earned that. He deserves to be. But I think that that Seider, a long-term piece, and best player on the blue line. Like, obviously the Wings have a long history giving A's to the best player on the blue line. Like that, I don't know. I think that it makes a lot of sense. And then, yeah, as far as Edvinsson goes, it's nice to hear that he wants to make adjustments. It's nice to hear that the people ahead of him are trying to encourage him to make adjustments. And yeah, like we've said ever since like prospect tourney 2022, like we've been saying on here, at least, like, you can see all the physical talent. Like, he has all the physical ability in the world. It's so easy to see and so noticeable immediately. And it's all just about his decision making. And so it makes a lot of sense hearing him say, along those same lines, right? And hear him say, like, yeah, like in European ice, I knew what to do with the puck right when I got it. I knew what my next step was. And here it's just such a faster paced game that he hasn't yet. So like his player development is not based on like physical ailment. Like he is going to, like, he's fine. He's NHL ready physically, like, and probably has been for a couple of years now. it's all about between the ears and making those right decisions. And once he gets over that, maybe that's not the right terminology to use, but once he reaches that point where he is consistently making like better decisions and feels comfortable and doesn't feel rushed with his decision making, he's going to explode onto the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you mentioned his decision making, that being the big problem that was holding him back during the preseason last year. And we saw a huge, obviously, when he played his 9-game stint with the Detroit Red Wings later this season, he had to improve a bunch. But I mean, I think that's what he's talking about when he talked about how in Sweden he had a lot more time to make decisions and he knew what he wanted to do before he got the puck. And that was the adjustment he needed to be made. And going back to the Seider thing, like the Detroit Red Wings have a returning core of leaders. You know, Ben Sherratt wore a bulk of the season. Love him or hate him on the ice, off the ice, he is a leader in that locker room. David Perron, absolutely a leader in that locker room. So they're probably going to wear the A's again this year, which I don't have any qualms with, to be honest. I think your captain should be a guy who can be really, really good on the ice and off the ice. But when it comes to your alternates, I think it's fine if they're just like really good locker room leaders. Someone who can help mentor the younger guys. And I think Sherratt and Perron both fit that role. But Seider, real quick here, I think is going to be earning that A on the blue line. And that's something that he brought up too, is in his press conference, he wanted to lead by example. And that's what he was trying to do with Simon Edvinsson, I would assume is what he was trying to do, at least with Simon Edvinsson. On top of the fact that, you know, he's just that's just how he is. And everything that we've seen out of Moritz Seider, he's just an all-around great player, and he seems like in the locker room a really good guy to be around. We talked about in his rookie season about how he kept things light, and how he talked about how he's just having fun playing the game of hockey. Like that was a horrible year, his rookie season, not for him, but for the rest of the team.
Right, yeah.
And he kept that locker room mood light despite all of that. And now in year 3, he's already turning into a leader. I mean, you're looking at a long-term A. And then, I mean, obviously, Dylan Larkin's got a long time ahead of him wearing the C. And I'm not trying to get too far ahead of myself, but you can see those early qualities in Moritz Seider as well.
Agreed.
And then Dylan Larkin also spoke to the media as well. He spoke over the weekend, obviously. And one thing he brought up again, he brought up Perron's leadership. As I just mentioned that's convenient. Nice transition into talking about David Perron. But he's like, it was funny the way he phrased it. He's like, you know, we've talked a lot about how David Perron loves to talk. But in the locker room is where it's needed the most. I'm paraphrasing, but that's he took a subtle shot at David Perron talking so much, but how that is much needed in the locker room, and how he's a great leader for the younger guys. And obviously, I just have so much love for David Perron. And then he talked about Lucas Raymond and how much explosiveness that he has now. And I think he used the term stacked when talking about Lucas Raymond. I just have in quotes on my sheet of paper here, stacked.
He did say stacked. Yeah, there was a couple of news outlets that used it in their headline too. So I mean, nice to see like his teammates are noticing as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't have too much else to add there. It's always nice to hear from Larks. Sometimes during the season, you know, like when November comes around, we're going to start hearing a lot of Larkin speak, right? Where it's a lot of
I mean, there was a lot
saying a whole lot.
That's why there's only 2 bullet points for Larkin. It was a 17-minute press conference, media availability, and I got 2 bullet points out of it because it was mostly captain speak.
Yeah, Larkin speak is definitely a real thing. But yeah, and I mean, nice to hear that like everyone is very aware of like what Raymond needs to work on, and still his ceiling that he could obtain if he does kind of do what he needs to do there. And it sounds like, you know, people are impressed with him so far. And then yeah, like we already kind of touched on the Perron thing, like you said, natural transition. But yeah, I mean, I have no issue if Perron is, you know, another wearing an A again and is another locker room leader for this team.
Yeah, and speaking about David Perron, we talked a lot yesterday about how, you know, we were looking at a very potential top line of David Perron on the right side with Dylan Larkin at center and Alex DeBrincat on left wing. Well, come tomorrow for the preseason opener, maybe not, because Derek Lalonde has already confirmed what his top line is going to be for the preseason opener at, I believe it's at LCA against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Actually, I do believe it is at LCA because it will be streamed on Valley Sports Detroit. So yeah, we'll talk about what that top line is going to be, but if Perron's not on it, you guys can probably assume who will be. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked on Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Derek Lalonde confirmed that tomorrow's top line for the Detroit Red Wings is going to be Larkin, DeBrincat, and Lucas Raymond. We've talked about it a lot this offseason, what that potential top line could look like, and this was basically one of the two main candidates for being the top line. What are we expecting from this top line in preseason game number 1?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say what I expect results wise in preseason game number 1, but I am very, very excited to see them play together. You can talk. We've had a lot of discussions about how this top 6 is gonna shape up this year after the acquisition of DeBrincat. Obviously, big shakeup, and with Raymond, you had a very promising rookie year. You had a little bit of a step back last year. There's a lot of question marks surrounding him, obviously, but I think it's very easy for people to just kind of point and go like, oh, well, Raymond's been a top line player on this team since like 3 weeks into his NHL career. Like he will probably stay there even with DeBrincat, but we saw in the red and white game, and we've been seeing in training camp, that like they're not afraid to put Perron up there. And I think in my head, it's been as far as the production of line 1 in a vacuum, right? And we've discussed, like, if you move Raymond down to line 2 and he has a really good year, you kind of be like divvying up the production a little bit more. I'm not against that at all. But I think in a vacuum, Perron at the top gives you maybe the higher floor, whereas Raymond playing at the top line with Larkin and DeBrincat gives you the higher ceiling. And
I think that's perfect. I think that's the perfect way of putting it.
Right, and I think that in the preseason, we are going to see a healthy combination of both of those to figure out if the risk is worth the reward of putting Raymond on the top line or not.
Yeah, I think you perfectly summed up what that would look like, because the passing ability of Lucas Raymond, who's primarily a pass first guy, combined with the shoot first capability of Alex DeBrincat and the great two-way game of Dylan Larkin, who can be a shoot first, pass first, defense first type guy, couldn't lead to one hell of an explosive offense from that top line. But there's also huge question marks about the defense. Lucas Raymond notably doesn't play the best defense. Last year, he put on the size, and we're all excited for the prospect. We're all excited for the idea, Scotty, if you will, of him having added that size. But, it remains to be seen if he can pick his defensive game up, if he can be tough on the puck, win the corner battles. I know DeBrincat isn't afraid to lay the body. He plays bigger than he is, but obviously size is always going to be a concern for a guy like him. Being, I think, 5'7", 5'8" is his official size. I think it's 5'8" is his official height.
8 or 9.
Maybe 5'9". Let me double check on that, because I feel like every single episode I say a different height, just completely disrespecting this man. He is officially 5'7" according to Wikipedia, if that's accurate. So, size is going to continue to be an issue. And then Dylan Larkin, he always gets it. He always is not afraid to get gritty, but we don't want that out of our captain. We want him to stay out of the penalty box and on the ice, and not giving players fistfuls of face of his glove and getting suspended.
Maybe sometimes,
Sometimes. I would prefer him to be on the ice. I'd prefer somebody else to step up. So like there's that balance, like you said. Like there's a really high ceiling, as you put it. But if those negatives that these players have, obviously DeBrincat not playing great defense, either show their ugly head, then they could give up a lot of goals as well, and never really sustain pressure in the offensive zone. But with Perron, on the other hand, like you said, Perron being the guy who's not afraid to go to the corners, great puck possession, hard on the puck guy. He's going to get to the corners. He's going to he's going to feed his teammates, primarily DeBrincat and Larkin, but also he's got a cannon of a shot too. So there's like a lot going to be the opportunity for a lot more consistency out of the top line if Perron's on it, but chance for a lot more goals if Raymond is on it.
Right. Yeah, agreed. And so that'll be something we follow throughout all of the preseason. And honestly, like that might be something that might not even be like super resolved, I guess is the word, until even a couple weeks into the regular season.
It's gonna be take a long. So many new bodies on this team. It's gonna take them forever to figure out what the best combinations are.
For sure, yeah. And then like we can transition, unless you have anything else, we can transition that into the Penguins game and just like kind of easy what we're looking for. First game of the preseason, obviously, number one priority is just stay healthy. That like every preseason game, that's like all I care about, right? Like I don't care if you lose 8-0. It's a preseason game. I just want everybody to really stay healthy. But aside from health and aside from the top line conversation, because that's one we've already kind of covered, I am interested in the line. All the focus, rightfully so, is going to be on the line combination at top. I'm very interested in the bottom six as well, like that, how the third and fourth line are going to be kind of, it feels almost like a revolving door early in the year. And like, you got a lot of players, you got to figure out which side of the ice, right? A lot of wingers, you got to figure out which side of the ice they're going to play on. And then, we just have a lot of new faces in the depth department as well. It's certainly, if you followed along in the offseason, you're aware it's not just the top line that got a new face. Like it had a big free agency, the Red Wings did. So I'm just as interested in who's going to play with who in the third and fourth line as I am as, who's going to play with Larkin and DeBrincat at the top.
Yeah, like when it comes to the roster, like I genuinely don't have any expectations outside the top line because I don't know who's going to be playing tomorrow night. I mean, this is still a roster.
A big thing as well.
There's still 54 people on this preseason roster. So, and only 23 are going to be dressed every single night, or not even. 18 skaters are going to be dressed every single night. 23 carried on a regular season roster, plus 2 goalies, maybe 3 goalies. I don't know. Preseason rosters might be a little expanded, actually. I can't remember, to be precise.
Regardless, though, your point stands.
So I can't make any, I'm not going to be watching to see maybe this could be our third line because I don't know what players are playing tomorrow night. The thing that I'm watching for is systems success because they're all going to be trying to play Derek Lalonde's system. And can that system outweigh the Penguin system that's being run? Am I seeing an improvement in the way they play defense? If Edvinson's playing, I'm going to be watching individual players. I'm assuming they're going to be playing Edvinson tomorrow, I would hope. Because, by the way, that's something we got to know. We've been talking about Edvinson. We didn't even mention Edvinson was at training camp, full contact.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even bring that up yesterday.
All summer, we kept talking about the fact that Simon Edvinson might not be back until mid-November. And then we heard he get cleared for contact. And then he's at training camp. Now he's going into preseason. We didn't even make note of the fact that he's healthy. Yeah, Simon Edvinson is a healthy hockey player. Ooh. So that is awesome to see. So yeah, if Simon Edvinson is playing, how big of a step forward does he look? Now I would expect him to look like one of the better players on the ice during preseason, because last year he looked a little shaky, and now he's playing against other teams. You would assume second string players for the most part. He should be rising above those guys. If Sebastian Cossa gets the net, can he hold his own? Will he bounce back? Special teams, the special team systems that they're running. Will we see success with that?
All right, let's maybe score a goal on the power play. Eh?
Let's not
put that one to bed. Let's score a goal.
So while I'm super pumped for tomorrow and to watch Red Wings hockey again, and actual on NHL ice, reffed by real NHL referees, wearing the uniforms, albeit without the arches, on the back of the jerseys. It's hard to do an actual preview and have real expectations for preseason game number one.
We're obviously not previewing the Penguins. That's we have no idea what lineup they're going to roll out there either. But I think there is still this roster is not 100% set. There's still a couple of fringe guys you could talk about and some guys that could play their way on. There is still a lot to watch for, and it'll be exciting to have hockey back. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to talk about guys who, if they play, obviously, you want to keep an eye on William Wallander, see what he can do, because he's a second-round pick the Red Wings had back in 2019. You want to hope that he can, was it 2019 or 2018? Or was it? No, it was 2020. It was the year they drafted Raymond, because it was the first pick in the second round. Because they should have had the first pick that year, but let's not talk about that.
Fun times.
But anyways, so you look at prospects. Watching prospects can be a lot of fun as well, or the PTOs. Alexander Doucette, who is signed to an ELC, late bloomer. If he's playing, keep an eye on him. Riley Sawchuk, he's a little older, but he had a really good training camp and prospects tournament, so keep an eye on him as well. So there's a handful of guys to keep an eye on if they play. And that's why it's so hard to do a preview because we don't even know if they're playing tomorrow.
Correct.
So I don't know, Scotty. Do you have any other final thoughts, man?
I don't think so, man. We ball.
We do ball. Guys, starting tomorrow. So Wednesday by the time you're listening to it, Tuesday by the time you're listening to this, Wednesday for that episode, we'll have like real hockey games to break down again and like real content to talk about. And that's exciting.
I'm thinking we're back.
We're so back.
That's so back.
We're so back. All right, guys. See you tomorrow as we break down the first preseason game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Woo. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.